all wars have defined enemies. In the 21st century, with the war on terror, the enemy is somewhere out there. But where? The region that now constitutes Pakistan occupies a unique place in history. Several invaders who came into the subcontinent moved through various passes. Alexander, the Huns and the Mughals, as did the British. This area maintains its ancient culture and provides glimpses of its history through the ravages of time. Once again, it assumes the center stage, but for different reasons. The terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001 have thrown the whole world into a new cauldron of crisis. The world has become a dangerous place. Suicide bombing has added a new dimension to the spate of terrorism and given them an enormous capability to transmit shock and awe across the globe. Peshawar, the capital of the northwest frontier province of Pakistan. The people of this land are a proud and a warrior race. From here, the world fought one of the greatest and defining battles of modern history, resulting in the withdrawal of the Soviet forces from Afghanistan and the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union, thereby ending the Cold War. US General Anthony Zinni is quoted in Tom Clancy's book Battle Ready. The Pakistanis had backed our efforts in Afghanistan during the Afghan rebellion against the Soviets. There were now a large number of refugees and a state of chaos on their western border as a result. And we had, in their view, dumped them.
Pakistan is probably the most unsung hero in the war against extremism.
Federally administered tribal areas, FATA, located in the northwestern part of Pakistan bordering Afghanistan, consists of 7 agencies, namely Bajaur, Muhammad, Khyber, Orakzai, Khurram, North Waziristan and South Waziristan. The last 2 are most important from the point of view of the war on terror. This is a wilderness where its people are still living like wild olives. Just like an olive tree requires grafting to bear fruit, these people need to grow into the 21st century. North Waziristan. This treacherous terrain and the rugged mountains where Pakistan Army is engaged in one of the most challenging tasks in its history.
It is these tribal agencies where never has the army gone inside these tribal agencies. So therefore, we made political and military arrangements to first of all penetrate into all these agencies. Having done that, we took time to establish a network of intelligence. We realized that there are massive concentration of Al-Qaeda members in one of our agencies, and that was South Waziristan agency. Therefore, we decided to launch an army operation. In this process, by the way, may I say that Pakistan Army suffered about 250 casualties. We paid in blood for all these operations against Al-Qaeda and all these terrorists. We have dislodged the Al-Qaeda from about 5 valleys of South Waziristan. These were the valleys where they had their sanctuaries. These sanctuaries were their logistic bases, their propaganda bases. They had made tunnels where they had put exchanges through which they used to exercise their command and control. In one place we got truckloads of electronic equipment, televisions, computers, discs, tapes, etc., which was probably used for their propaganda machinery.
Pakistan's support was essential in our campaign against the Taliban. Thanks to the effective border security measures and law enforcement cooperation throughout the country, and thanks to the leadership of President Musharraf.
Before the arrival of Pakistan Army, these people had never seen the light of modernization. No schools, no electricity, or even roads, no proper means of livelihood or industry. For their survival, these fierce fighters have always been ready to fight for money and not for any particular ideology or cause. They fought against the British in the 19th century, then against the Russian forces in Afghanistan in the 20th century for 10 years. 2004, the most challenging yet accomplishing year since Pakistan joined the war on terror. The measures taken by Islamabad after September 11, 2001 were instrumental in hunting down Al-Qaeda. Long before Spain and Turkey were hit, and prior to the London bombings, Pakistan was the first to be targeted by terrorists. Across Pakistan, hundreds of innocent civilians were killed in massive acts of terror and remained subjected to drug trafficking and gun running for over 3 decades. Even President Musharraf escaped 2 assassination attempts. Prime Minister Shaukat Aziz and Corps Commander Karachi had also narrowly escaped attempts on their lives. The challenge before the armed forces was immense. The history of military campaigns in these regions does not provide a favorable picture. The mighty British Empire failed to subdue them, and even the mightier USSR disintegrated while subduing their brethren in Afghanistan. Despite this, Pakistan Army launched its campaign against terror in this area on all fronts: military, socio-economic, and ideological. During operations in 2004, the army discovered terrorist hideouts and was surprised how well equipped and well trained the terrorists were. Sophisticated weapons were recovered from these sanctuaries. The terrorists mounted some of the deadliest attacks possible by an irregular force. They also coupled it with well-planned psychological operations and propaganda campaign by flooding the markets with thousands of CDs and literature aiming at convincing the Pakistani public that their government was somehow violating religious injunctions by fighting them. These CDs also became an attraction for the media, thus indirectly helping Al-Qaeda in spreading their message across the globe. The arsenal for the terrorist is the youth of today. These teenagers have been indoctrinated by the extremists and are used as human weapons in suicide bombings.
Today, if you ask me that as to what's left of these foreign terrorists, I would say that not more than 100, and I put the figure to 70 to 80, and they are in small penny packets on the run. They are into hiding, maybe hibernating, but it's not a threat, it's no more an organized force. So I would say that I have eliminated about 85% of the foreign terrorists.
This is a new generation of Afghan voters casting their ballots in peace. For 30 years, they were denied this right. To ensure peaceful elections here, Pakistan placed additional 5,000 troops on Afghan border with Northwest Frontier Province and 4,500 on Afghan border with Balochistan, and also imposed curfew within 5 kilometers of the border area. Pakistan's unprecedented anti-terror campaign generated an effect that went far beyond the borders of Pakistan. The leads provided by Pakistan directly resulted in averting terrorist attacks planned by various terrorist networks in different parts of the world, like the plan to attack London's Heathrow Airport in 2004.
I would like to thank the President for the moves that he has made recently. He explained to me just now in the meeting the 6-point strategy that he has for fighting terrorism, terrorism not just in Pakistan but elsewhere as well.
Pakistan's strategy against terrorism had a favorable effect on the Pakistani public opinion, emboldening many Pakistanis to stand up to terrorism. Ghufran, a 24-year-old young man from Karachi, on spotting a suicide bomber in a Karachi mosque, without caring for his personal safety, jumped on him and threw him out of the compound, thus saving the lives of hundreds of worshippers.
मस्जिद में मैंने भाई ने और दीगर साथी ने मिलकर गेट पर वॉलंटियर का काम अदा किया। हमारे बाद ये बात जहन में थी कि वो तो खुदकश हमलावर है। उस रोज़ भी हुआ ही, अचानक शदीद फायरिंग शुरू हो गई। देखा कि एक शख्स जूते पहना हुआ दाखिल हुआ और तेज़ी से आगे बढ़ने लगा, तो मैं उसकी तरफ गया, तो मैंने उसको पुश किया तो वो पिलर से जाकर टकराया, तो मैं पिलर के उस तरफ गिरा था। फिर याद धमाका, फिर याद नहीं रहा।
Pakistani military concentration is the largest of any coalition member on either side of the Pakistan-Afghan border. There are over 80,000 troops operating in the federally administered tribal areas of Pakistan, who are manning 768 checkposts all along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. They launched over 90 major operations. As a daily routine, they carry out 70 to 80 patrolling and ambush missions, besides establishing 50 to 60 mobile checkposts. 3 air assault companies have been specially trained for snap and search operations. over 800 terrorists have been apprehended and over 300 have been killed so far. Al-Qaeda's backbone has been broken. It has ceased to exist as a viable force. Al-Qaeda is now more of a phenomenon than a network. Sporadic acts of terrorism that still continue in other parts of the world are due to local conditions, or more likely by certain regional groups who are using the name of Al-Qaeda to lend legitimacy to their acts. Major General Shaukat Sultan Khan, Director General ISPR, regularly visits the tribal areas in order to brief the world media on the progress of the war on terror.
Pakistan condemns terrorism in all its manifestations and forms, and Pakistan is committed not to allow its territory to be used for terrorism, for any terrorist act within the country or outside the country.
Pakistan is fighting on many fronts to eliminate terrorism and extremism with a multi-pronged strategy to bring the tribal region into the mainstream Pakistani civil society. Other than the artillery pieces and combat helicopters, the engineering corps is building schools, roads and digging wells for clean drinking water, constructing necessary permanent infrastructure to link these hardy people to the civilized world. The medical corps is providing vital treatment to the sick and the suffering from multiple diseases. Aisha Wazir, this talented youth from Waziristan, was denied her basic right to higher education. Since the army operation, this society has welcomed many enlightened changes. Now girls like Aisha are pursuing their studies in major cities of Pakistan.
The movement of army in our areas has actually proved to be instrumental in the emancipation of women. They have actually made our parents understand that your daughters must also contribute respectfully in the country's peace, progress and prosperity.
President Musharraf also lobbied the leaders of the Islamic world to adopt that part of the strategy of enlightened moderation. At the same time, the Pakistani leader has been trying to convince the Western leaders to accept their responsibility to resolve political disputes involving Muslims in order to root out terrorism.
Your country has had a key role to play in counter-terrorism, and you, Mr. President, have personally shown great courage and commitment in taking action against terrorism, despite often domestic difficulties in doing so.
This is the town of Shakai that had remained a hotbed of foreign militants and Al-Qaeda terrorists in South Waziristan Agency until the summer of 2004. Today, it has schools for boys and girls funded by the Pakistan Army. Instead of learning ideologies of hate and anger, the younger generation of this part of the tribal belt is learning computer skills and sciences. Pakistan is a peace-living and peace-loving nation. It has taken the lead in fighting terrorism and extremism and has done enough and is committed to do more.
Also, I salute somebody in President Musharraf who has played a major role in the fight against terrorism, somebody who has understood the need to confront and defeat the extremist elements within our society, and they are to be found in many societies that seek to visit death and terrorism on people around the world.
No single state can win this war alone. That is why a well-coordinated international effort is required to achieve this purpose. Poverty, illiteracy, and political injustice are the causes upon which terrorism thrives. Living in the Stone Age-like conditions was once an accepted destiny by these people. That is history now. Realizing the need for progress and modernity, these tradition-loving people have voted in favor of reforms. The transformation of their young generation is clearly visible. The guns are silenced as peace and tranquility are returning to these areas. The wild olive trees are now turning into the proverbial olive branch for the rest of the world, as these hardy people are joining the 21st century.